This week in the parish of bourses and market structure, John Greenan Aquis, India seeks to open commodity futures, while two markets range from bullying to Scientology as IEX Options is approved. My name is Patrick L. Young. Welcome to the Bourse Business Weekly Digest. It's the Exchange Invest Weekly Podcast, episode 314. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very brief reduction of highlights amongst the key headlines from the week in market structure. All the analysis of the many events and happenings from the past 7 days can be found in Exchange Invest's daily subscriber newsletter, the unique guide to the Bourse business, sent daily to your inbox. More details at exchangeinvest.com. Over in BitCarnage, ramifications for the entire markets of Europe. The concept of pan-EU regulation is hanging by a centralised string as Austria, France, Italian regulators have all threatened to block other EU MiCA crypto firms, according to Ledger Insights, aka multiple jurisdictions, not just France, are seeking to ignore the passporting concept, which is the only element that makes EU regulation worthwhile. If you enjoyed this excerpt, you may be interested to know you can read BitCarnage every day in Exchange Invest. Alternatively, if you want to follow BitCarnage alone, the daily update on happenings in the world of crypto and digital assets, you can find BitCarnage as a standalone on Substack. This week in exchanges, things keep going from worse to even worse at ASX, as a former employee has accused ASX Chief Executive Lofthouse of bullying. Former ASX Head of Trading Technology Jamie Halstead claims CEO Helen Lofthouse, in her previous role as General Manager of Markets, was frequently passive-aggressive and belittling in her demeanour. The problem is not a single employment complaint. The issue is that there appears remarkable resourcing and culture issues within ASX, which some might see as coherently aligned with the dysfunction of the Australian market monopolist in not upgrading its settlement technology and indeed exasperating the usually semi-supine ASIC to investigate it as a result of management failures. Meanwhile, another whistleblower alleges ASX tried to hide governance failures from RBA. In the wake of the bullying accusations, it's hard to believe ASX could further shred its reputation. However, thanks to a truly inspirational level of management and competence, the Australian monopolist somehow always manages to shuffle from bad to worse. Thanks for listening to Exchange Invest Weekly. We welcome your feedback. You can contact me directly, patrick@derivativesvision.com, with any comments. Meanwhile, if you enjoyed this show, we would welcome you giving us a thumbs up, or if you have time, a positive review will always be welcome, wherever you find this podcast. On Bloomberg TV last week, Thomas Peterffy, the boss of Interactive Brokers, chairman and co-founder therein, said prediction markets may overshadow equities. Reminds me of something that PLY, yours truly, said 3 decades ago, pointing out as follows: equity markets probably 4 out of 10 of a strong view. Political markets easily higher on all topics, particularly key ones, thus we're looking at maybe 6 or 8 out of 10. However, sports markets, when it comes to the like of the World Cup for soccer or the playoffs in baseball, easily 12 out of 10 people have a strong view. Thus, PLY is in agreement with the excellent Mr. Peterffy almost 30 years later. No results this week, but one great new market. IEX have won approval for their new venue, looking to upend the options trading market. Hurrah! A new options venue, espicing the IEX fundamentals of latency chicaning, will reduce ULLQ jumping and be a fascinating addition to the 23 million SEC-regulated venues. I think I got the number of venues right anyway. In deals, not a lot happening, but one fascinating deal that was highlighted in Exchange Invest Daily, the newsletter no person can afford to be without in capital markets and market structure. Manichae have exited the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange. It appears that former cornerstone holder of the TASE, Manichae Global, have sold most or all of their Tese stake. They originally acquired it in 2018. Don't forget, if you like a few pictures alongside your PLY remarks and more, check out our live streams. Tuesdays, 5 o'clock London time, midday New York time. It's the IPO Video Live Show. Catch the back episodes on LinkedIn and YouTube via IPO-VID. Now online, the 23rd of September episode, The Carbon Paradox, with Steve Zwick, Renat Heuberger and Marco Hirschbrunner, bringing their fascinating new book about eco markets. And coming up on Tuesday, we've got another panel on markets and IT, this time with our special guests, Anberg, Hamish Adurian and Daniel Davis. Tune in for that at 5 o'clock London, midday New York time on Tuesday. Finance book of the week this week is a true classic, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds by Charles Mackay, A Popular History of Popular Folly in Human Society. Vital reading for investors everywhere. Over in products, SIBO Europe derivatives are going to launch flex options in Europe, and SEBI and the central bank, the RBI, are in talks to boost trading in corporate bond index derivatives. Over in regulation, fascinating remark by Donald Trump saying companies, corporations should not be required to report quarterly. Back to 6 months earnings, anybody? Could be a fascinating move for the US stock market. In career paths, sensational news across the board. Lord Hill of Orford has been elected to the board of directors of the Intercontinental Exchange. Very exciting news as ICE appoints a sound mind and one of the few UK Remainers who adhered to democracy, unlike, for instance, pretty much all the other elected Remainers. Lord Hill has intelligence, panache and clear thinking, all despite having been a Conservative Party politician. He's an excellent addition to the ICE board, albeit the question may be, why enhance the board's British contingent now? Is Lord Hague, a good chairman, a perma-wrong adult politician for at least a generation now, going to step down as ICE Europe chairman? I suspect it's because he may be close to the FCA's rather daft 9-year Cadbury term limits. Also, Chairman Hague could be seeking to spend more time as chairman of Oxford University, where he beat one Peter Mandelson to the post. And of course, nobody has heard of Mandelson ever since. Well, at least in the dreams of UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Probably some element of the above, but there's always the hope ICE is going to use its vast UK-EU legacy cash flow to acquire some assets on the eastern side of the Atlantic. Our headline today was, of course, John Greenan joining Aquis Exchange as Director Technologies. Absolutely delighted to see the excellent John Greenan with a truly global reputation joining Aquis to lead their technology business. As Director Technologies, John will be responsible for leading the sales and contracting activities for the company's market-leading proprietary exchange infrastructure, technology and services. From the vendor perspective, it's interesting that Aquis have taken somebody who's a hugely experienced person in tech and installation, and indeed a former Aquis client, to head their renewed efforts to sell matching engines at all. This has impact across the board for all the other vendors in the field, as a seriously resourced Aquis under the parent banner of the Swiss Exchange makes for a very interesting proposition, particularly in the mid-bourse space, Tier 2, top of Tier 3 and Young's Pyramids. The vendors will now have to differentiate themselves clearly as Aquis is a strong competitor in the arena. I mentioned the Scientology story earlier on, fascinating one from the Wall Street Journal. Apparently Joe Sakila, a previous guest on IPO-VID, Building the Dream Exchange was his episode, and the Dream Exchange itself have considerable ties to the L. Ron Hubbard Church of Scientology. Down under, no links to Scientology, but a link to retirement. The government is seeking a new ASIC boss, with Joe Longo set to exit, having only recently become more engaged and actually looking to rein in the egregious mismanagement of ASX. It's not a huge loss to bid farewell to Chairman Longo. At the same time, the risk is we get another chairman reluctant to bring the failing market monopoly to book. Speaking of books, Thomas Book, that he has been extended in his role as an executive board member on the board of Deutsche Börse AG, while CFTC chairman confirmation hearings have been delayed and apparently new candidates are being considered. During August, we bid farewell to one of Illinois' finest, 97-year-old Jim Lovell, astronaut who flew on Gemini 7, Gemini 12, Apollo 8, and became a living legend for coolly commanding the Apollo 13 mission, which orbited the moon but was already stricken with multiple problems, making for a true tale of the right stuff, as Lovell and his crew, John Jack Swigert and Fred Hayes, threaded the rocket back to Earth after 3.5 days in frigid conditions with little food, suffering dehydration, as Houston helped the crew return to Earth in what amounted to little short of a miraculous splashdown on April 17, 1970, 9 months after the first lunar landing. In later life, Lovell ran a wonderful eponymous restaurant in Lake Forest, Illinois, where I had the pleasure of dining not long after it opened in 1999. The highlight was obtaining a signature and a copy of his book, Lost Moon, devoted to the Apollo 13 mission. R.I.P., a great American hero. And finally, here's a fun fact. Well, not a fun fact if you're a French taxpayer. French government debt is increasing by €5,000 per second. And on that mysterious and magnificent note, thank you for listening to this EI Weekly Podcast 314. Join us daily via exchangeinvest.com, or if you have any exchange you'd like built, get in touch. My name is Patrick L. Young, and I wish you a great week in life and markets.
This show relates to the business of bourses. It is not to be construed as investment advice, nor are we making any investment recommendations. Please consult an investment advisor before you make any investments, and for goodness sake, do your due diligence and do not make investments without complying with the regulations in your home state. Exchange Invest cannot be held responsible for any investment decisions made as a result of our program, which is for entertainment purposes only. The material herein is copyright Patrick L. Young at the date of publication, while our music and sound effects are sourced from copyright-free sources. Thanks for listening to Exchange Invest Weekly, the exchange of information.